All right, the NHL season has concluded, and now it is time for the Stanley Cup playoffs preview and my picks for the NHL playoffs. Today, the Boston Bruins lose to the Florida Panthers, and they will now be the 2 seed against Toronto in the first round, where the Lightning get the New Jersey Devils in the first round of the NHL playoffs. I will start off with. Hey, I think the first matchup I'm going to start off with are the Tampa Bay Lightning against the New Jersey Devils. This one will be an interesting one as the Devils reappear in the playoffs after a 5-year absence when PDB was the coach of the Devils. Right now, I think the advantage I've got to say is going to go to the New Jersey Devils. I certainly think they have the goal. They got the better goaltending. Alexander Vasilevsky is definitely a more superior goaltender than and Corey Schneider's been awful the last part of the season. And I don't know if you can trust Keith Kincaid in the postseason. That's gonna get really interesting. But also, Tampa Bay has Stamkos, and maybe Vasilevsky can find his game. Andre Vasilevsky. It's Andre Vasilevsky. I am so sorry. But as but my but they got Stamkos. They got the better defense. They've got the better power, the better forwards. Right now, I'm going to say the Lightning win the series in 5 games. Next up will be the Washington Capitals against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I actually think this could be a better series than what's advertised here. The Capitals certainly have some holes in their game, and definitely this. And I think the advantage for Columbus is Sergei Bobrovsky. If the good Bobrovsky shows up here in the playoffs, I certainly think they could give Washington a run for their money. Whereas the Capitals, their goaltending was not good last year in the postseason, and it looks like Braden Holtby, looks like Philip Grabauer is definitely going to be the starting goaltender for the Capitals in this series, which means Holtby will be relegated to the backup role here in this series unless Grabauer struggles. But they definitely have Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, and Oshie. But in the head-to-head this year, Washington won the regular season series 3-1. But still, Columbus has Bobrovsky, and he's a really superior goaltender. And then you got Artemi Panarin, who has some playoff experience with the Chicago Blackhawks. and Bobrovsky got hot at the right time. And then they got Thomas Vanek, Letiso, Boone Jenner. So certainly, and also the Capital, the Blue Jackets definitely finished hot in this series in the season. So they did finish the season strong, and I think I am actually going to take an upset in this series, and I am going to go Blue Jackets in 7 games. Next up is the this should be a really good original six best of seven between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, where former Shark Patty Marleau will now play his first playoff game in as a as a Maple Leaf. But certainly Toronto has has decent goaltending, not great goaltending. They'll definitely roll with Jonathan Bernier, not Bernier, Alfredson, I think. All right, Frederick Anderson is definitely a good goaltender. He definitely could be good for the Maple Leafs here. The key in this series is going to be one Austin Matthews. Can Matthews light the lamp here in this series? And of course, you got Tuukka Rask for the Bruins. And of course, you got Anton Kudobin, two good goaltenders in and Nick Bugstad. So that's Kudobin and Rask. Definitely a good tandem for the Bruins. And I am going to pick. I'm going to say Bruins will win the series in 6 games. Of course, you got Bergeron, who's got experience. You got Chara, who just recently got extended. You got some youngsters. I certainly think the Bruins are the better team. I'll take them in 6 games. And on to the Battle of Pennsylvania. This should be a really good series between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Philadelphia Flyers. Claude Giroux coming off a 100-point season, got Wayne Simmons. And then, of course, on the other side, you've got Evgeny Malkin. You've got Malkin. You got Sidney Crosby. You've got Matt Murray, who's really good in the postseason. And until you knock down the champions, they're still the champions and the Penguins. The Flyers, they have holes. The goaltending, can they roll with Peter Mrazek and okay, it looks like it's going to be Peter Mrazek and Brian Elliott. Those are two guys that don't exactly have the greatest success here in the postseason. But Philadelphia is scrappy, and Dave Hackstall was certainly a guy who looked cooked earlier in the season, and really bounced back after a slow start. And right now, I am taking I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins the series in 7 games. I definitely think Philadelphia is going to stretch this to a 7 game series. Expect a lot of hard hitting, some fighting. You're going to see a classic Philadelphia Pittsburgh series in this one. Now on to the Western Conference. We're going to go with the Predators and the Avalanche. And the Preds coming don't look like they have a hangover, but unfortunately it looks like they could be cursed with the President's Trophy curse. And you got Colorado, a team that was the worst team in the NHL last year, squeaked in as a second wild card this season. And if it weren't for Gerard Gallant getting the Jack Adams, I think the guy that would have been the choice would have been Jared Bednar. Bednar did a great job rallying the troops this year. Really good young Avalanche team. And definitely a good, we'll see some good goaltending out of Jonathan Bernier. That's definitely going to help down the stretch here for them. But the problem is Pekka Rinne has just had a Vizina year for the Preds, and Juice Saros is just as good as Pekka Rinne for the goaltending. And then, of course, you've got PK Subban. You got Flip Forsberg. That's PK Subban, Flip Forsberg. And this team is just solid from the first line to the fourth line. Arvidsson. And I think the Preds swept the regular season series in this one. I see no way Colorado wins the series. I'm going to take Nashville in 5 games. Now on to the Vegas Golden Knights, who make the playoffs in their first year as a franchise against the Los Angeles Kings. And you know what? I think this could be the worst matchup in the first round Vegas could have hoped for. You definitely have Neil. You've definitely got some good talent over there in Vegas, but LA, what LA brings is plenty of playoff experience. You got Jonathan Quick, who's really good when it comes time for the postseason, and you've got and then Anze Kopitar's had a really good year for the LA Kings thus far, scoring wise. Jeff Carter has looked great since coming back from injury. And then Dion Phaneuf adds some physicality. Alec Martinez. And then, of course, Dustin Brown is definitely going to get under the Vegas's skin. And then you got William Karlsson for Vegas. And in the head-to-head this year, I think LA actually won the series 2-1-1. And of course, you got Toffoli, who's recovered from Toffoli's been pretty good this year. And it's going to be William Carlson, David Perrone, Riley Smith. Those are going to be the three keys. But I think this could be one. I'm picking upset in 7. I am going with the LA Kings in 7. I think that playoff experience definitely comes through. They take a game in Vegas. It'll certainly be Quayton's for Vegas. And now on to a really good this one should be a really good matchup here in the Central Division between the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. The Winnie and Mini series. And certainly this is another one that features two really good goaltenders. Connor Hellebuck's had a really hell of a good season, and you got Devin Dubnyk for the Wild. But this is one where maybe playoff experience could help out the Wild. As the Jets are going to be the favorites, but also they do have the speed advantage too over Minnesota. That definitely helps them. Winnipeg won the regular season series 3-1. Of course, you still got Eric Stahl, who was really good the second half of the year, Zach Parise, Mikael Granlund, and Jason Zucker. And Ryan Suter, who's out for the year, and it's got to be Helbeck. Hellebuck has to have a really good playoff series in order to win it for the Jets. But Dumba has to be good too, and of course you got to have Dubnyk show up here in the postseason. If Hellebuck fades in the postseason, I'm certainly. But this is another one where maybe playoff experience might kick in here. Hello, Von Hook. I certainly think the playoff experience might kick in for Minnesota in this one. So if I think Minnesota is definitely capable of winning a game in Winnipeg, and I think Minnesota does win this series in 7 games. And now on to the last series, the San Jose Sharks and the Anaheim Ducks. The Ducks are banged up, and the Sharks backed into the 3rd seed last night by losing to the Wild. But certainly the Sharks have the better speed with Evander Kane and Timo Meyer. Tomas Hertl's had a great year for the Sharks. So those are key players. And then Chris Tierney's had a really awesome year. So I certainly think the big question mark, though, has been defense, actually. Paul Martin's definitely not been good the last few games. And I don't know why Peter DeBoer has decided to stick with Paul Martin. And I certainly think this could be a series where if the Sharks get behind the 8 ball, say 2-0, you could see a switch back to Joachim Ryan. And then, of course, Martin Jones, he is usually a better goaltender in the postseason than the regular season. So that definitely plays well for the Sharks. Whereas Anaheim, they're going to be rolling with Ryan Miller in the postseason. And you're certainly going to have Getzlaff, who's fallen off a step this year. Corey Perry's fallen back a step this year. And this could be a really good. This could be a winnable series for the Sharks, depending on Burns. Brent Burns has not had as good of a year, and Burns has been a liability the last few games too for the Sharks. But if the Sharks and getting Eric Fairback and Barclay Goodrow for the bottom line, that definitely helps to solidify the 4th line for the Sharks. If PDB can get all 4 lines rolling, I don't see why not. The Sharks can win this game in 6 games. I certainly think that's a possibility. But I think the Ducks could win the series Paul Martin continue if PDB continues to hang on to Paul Martin. And that concludes my NHL playoff. Yes, we should win this series, but like I said, my key is going to be defense. I mean, you can't hang on to Paul Martin if you got to go Ryoki Ryan if you do fall behind 2-0. And that's where it could get really interesting for the Sharks. But this concludes my playoff previews and predictions. Next week, I'll be on air doing my NBA playoff picks. Or actually, I'll probably do that maybe Thursday night or Friday night. But my baseball stuff, I've moved that over to the Giants Roundup channel. Please subscribe to the Giants Roundup channel if you want to for baseball news and all that. I will see after the NBA season concludes and make my picks for the NBA playoffs. Have a good night.